exactly 37 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Sunday Live here at Citizen Television. Now, Kenyans this past week were made aware that there'll be yet another deduction to their February pay slips to a higher Nssf rate that will be implemented starting next month.
Well, last year, the fund introduced a graduated plan that would see deductions increase over the course of 5 years. Now, in an already punitive tax regime, Kenyan workers are not a happy lot with this added expense. Well, tonight we speak to the stakeholders who conceptualized this new rate regime and seek to get answers on what drove the decision to implement it now. Joining us in studio are David Koros, the Nssf Managing Trustee. We also have Michael Macharia, representing the Federation of Kenya Employers. And right in the middle is Rose Omamo from the Central Organization of Trade Unions Kenya. Thank you all for joining us this evening.
Indeed. Welcome to Sunday Live. David Koros, let's start with you. How did you decide that this is the amount to deduct from Kenyans?
Jeff, first and foremost, thank you for having us today. I think I need, before even I go to the amount that we deduct from Kenyans, I need to give you a background to this. And I think, if you remember, Article 43 of the Constitution of Kenya actually makes Social Security a right to every Kenyan. So, given that background, Nssf is the institution that is mandated to implement that provision of the Constitution in Article 43. Again, Jeff, if you remember, or rather, if I take you back, prior to 2013 or 2010, when the Kenyan Constitution, the new Constitution was enacted, we had an old Nssf operating under Cap 258, with contributions ranging from an absolute amount of around 400 shillings, or around 10%. The initial conceptualization was to be, contributions would be about 10% of the earnings or of the incomes of the workers. However, if you look at that savings then, it was capped at 400 shillings. And the adequacy of that saving at 400 shillings, people would retire after working for 30 years, 40 years, with a paltry 150, 140,000. So there was that need for a review of the way we were organizing our social security system. The standards that are required, if you look at the ILO standards, under Convention number 102 and 128, it is a requirement that as you design a pension scheme, the level of income replacement should be, after working for 30 years, you should get an income replacement of around 30 to 40%. Let's say even 40 to 60%. However, our savings rate was giving us just 144,000 after you work for 30 years. Imagine a situation where an individual is earning 100,000 shillings, and his savings into the social security system would only give him 144,000. That's hardly 1.5 months of his usual pay, and it was not going to be sustainable.
So what is the number now?
So what has happened now, we have actually adopted a modest rate of 12% as a percentage of income, as a contribution to the social security or a savings towards your retirement. So it's 12%, split into 6% employer and 6% employee. So basically that is the rate. Again, if you look at that savings rate, it's still the lowest in the region. If you compare our savings rate, that contribution to a retirement benefit scheme, in Kenya is about 12%. Our neighbor in Uganda is about 15%. In Tanzania, it's about 20%. In Nigeria, it's about 18%. In Ghana, it's about 18.5%. And many other countries. So in the region generally, these savings that we are saving actually, this is a saving. It's not a tax. It's not. So this saving that we are saving in our retirement is still the lowest in the region. It doesn't give us adequate benefit, because when you retire, if you are working and you are getting, when you retire and you receive a pension or a periodic payment of what you call income replacement ratio of 40%, it doesn't cover your retirement needs. As you age, as you retire, you need more money. Possibly, the world standard is you need about 60 to 70% income replacement. Yeah. So that is the situation. That's the background in which we are having these deductions or these Nssf, enhanced Nssf contributions, and the new Act of 2013 implements those provisions. And in fact, Chef, we are 10 years to almost 12 years behind schedule. We should have implemented these things in 2013. However, we had a few issues with courts, but actual implementation started last year, in February last year.
Yeah.
So the challenge has been, and the bigger question is, we want to be a middle-income country. We want to, under Vision 2030, this country aspires to be a middle-income country. But again, we need to be cognizant of the fact that when we retire, when these people retire, they need to be maintained at the level of income that gives them adequate income replacement.
Let me come to Rose on this, because the explanation you've given, Mr. Koros, is very logical.
Yes.
You want to improve the yields that workers get once they retire. Yes. You've also compared it to the region and other countries in Africa, saying, we're relatively low. But I think the argument that most Kenyans have is, why now? You've said because of the court cases that delayed it.
Yes.
Under a very punitive tax regime, Kenyan salaries are already being hit quite hard. And so the question to you, Rose, is where was the voice of KOTU? I know KOTU, FKE, both sit on the Nssf fund. This is something really that could have been dealt with at the board level. So, where was the Wananchi voice in all of this?
Thank you for that question. And as you have rightfully said, KOTU and FKE sits in this board, and indeed we are trustees in the board. And our voice has been there since then. Since the formation of the Act, we participated in the formation of the Act. We agreed to the Act and we bought the idea because we realized that we have a very poor saving culture as Kenyans, and also given the fact that we saw for ourselves that when people retire and they do not have retirement benefits, it is like a death sentence. When they go home, they die very fast. Reason being, they are at home, they have no income. They were used to, like you are taking white tea when you were working, but now you go back home, you cannot even afford black tea. To make things work at your old age, you also need to take some medicines. You don't have money to even purchase some medicines for yourselves. So we agreed that we need to have a retirement benefit for our workers. When they go back home, they have sufficient income that they can help themselves in terms of even buying their food at home. So our voice has been there. KOTU was there. KOTU has always supported this. And actually, we are saying that it is the best thing. And we are even urging workers not to look at this as a burden, because it is a saving. It's not a burden that your salary is deducted and it's going somewhere. It is your money. It's only that you are not utilizing it now, but when you go home upon retirement, then you have all your time now to get your benefits and to, have some sufficient income.
So to arrive at the 6% that's in the Nssf Act, was there public participation, for instance? You've talked about the trustees having a say in that, but, what about the regular man?
There was a public participation before 2013. Before the Act was taken to the Parliament, there was public participation, and we participated as KOTU, the public participated, FKE participated. So it's only that it delayed due to the litigations that MT has just mentioned. But it would have started then. So it delayed because of those litigations, but there was full participation. Court, we participated.
Michael Macharia, representing the Federation of Kenya Employers, were there any objections to this process?
Yes, Jeff. First of all, what people forget is that the whole idea of enhanced benefits was, it actually came from us. It came from the employers and the employees. Because what was happening, if you look at our collective bargaining agreements, we have a clause known as gratuity. And this is where the employer keeps some money aside for the employee to access in retirement. And why was that clause introduced? Because of the inadequacy of the pension system. So when we were starting the whole process is actually an idea that emanated from us, so that we could get rid of this gratuity, because it was based on an accrual basis where you just save and you can't invest that money because it's not yours. So we were thinking it's better to go into a pension fund where you put in your money, the employer and the employee, it is saved for you, it is invested on your behalf, and some interest, and then you can access it at the end. So that was our idea. Yes, there were some objections in 2013. And the objections were based on, first of all, the issue I talked about, gratuity. When we go into an advanced, enhanced system of contributions, would we then do away with gratuity? What would we do with the amount that had been accrued up to that point? So those were the disagreements that we had. And those were the issues that we wanted addressed before we operationalized the act itself. However, there were not such major issues. There were other issues. Is it based on a gross salary? Is it based on a basic salary? And if you already have a superior scheme, do you opt out? Those were the issues that came around. The issue was not that the act was bad, per se. It was just operational issues that needed to be addressed.
So are you all on the same page when it comes to these deductions, all of you?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Yes, all of you?
Yes.
Though, you know, there are some FKE members who said the cost of labor has gone up as a result of some of these measures.
When you look at what our members are complaining about, they are complaining about the general cost of living, the general cost of doing business. That's what they're complaining about. They will hardly complain about saving for their employees to access money in retirement. They complain about other issues, the major taxation that doesn't go back to the employee. But when you ask them about this, they will tell you, look, we already accrued this money anyway. Are we able to just transfer it to a pension scheme or transfer it to Nssf? Or is it going to just sit there as an accrual? Then we pay it without earning interest. So for them, it's mostly other areas. This particular area, when you look at it, Victoria, strictly speaking, if you look at the rates, because they are based on average national earnings and average minimum rates, a person earning 500,000, for example, is still contributing 3,600 shillings, while they should be contributing about 25 to 30% of their salary. I mean, 25,000 to 30,000 in a future savings. So when you look at the contributions themselves in absolute numbers, they're still fairly low. But at that point in time, what was envisaged was a graduation over a period of 5 years. Then after 5 years, then review what are the national minimum rates or average salaries, then peg it on that.
And these deductions are going to increase next year, aren't they?
Yes.
Every February.
Right? For 5 years.
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 Yes.
So from 6% to what?
Yeah.
What happens, it's not percentage, the percentage doesn't change, Chef. It is the amounts. What happened, you have alluded to a negotiation or public participation exercise that was done before the implementation of this act. And in that negotiation, it was agreed that these contributions would be based on average earnings, and this contribution, which was the national average earnings, would form the higher limit or the upper limit. And then there was something called the minimum wage would form what we would call, these contributions were split into tier 1, tier 2.
Right.
The minimum wage would be the basis of contributing to tier 2. So what was agreed then was, rather than use the minimum wage of 18%, of 18,000 shillings, it was actually reduced to 12,000, out of which, now for tier 1 purposes, the amounts were prescribed in what we would call Schedule 3 of the Act. And it started with 6,000 shillings. Second year, it goes to 7,000. Third year, it goes to 8,000. Fourth year, it goes to 9,000. And then on the fifth year, it actually adopts the minimum wage, which is about, you could imagine maybe it will be around 15,000, 18,000. That would be tier 1.
It'll probably be more then.
Yeah, so tier 1 is what, the Provident Fund, just to be clear?
Not really. It is all retirement savings. Remember, we've moved from the Provident Fund to a pension fund. That's the transformation that came with the 2013 Act. So we are saving into a pension fund. The only thing that happens is that tier 1 is mandatory and it remains within Nssf. What you would call tier 2 contributions can be contracted out under Section 21. You
okay,
could,
Michael, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I've been contributing for, let's say, 10 years, and then I die.
Yeah.
What happens?
Then now the rules of testacy come in. Who's your next of kin? Yeah, who have you assigned?
That's not true,
yeah.
Because there's some people who have died, a lot of people,
yeah.
and the next of kin never get the money.
Oh, and that's an operation.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
No, let me answer this.
What happens to them?
Yeah.
What happens, ideally, in a working system, when you are saving in a retirement benefit scheme, you indicate, should this happen, should the unfortunate happen, that you depart, you have what you call a next of kin or a nominated beneficiary form. In that form is where you say, all my savings, if I happen to die before or rather, whenever, at whatever point I die while I'm saving, my next of kin are so and so, and they would get their money. The challenge has been that over time, the claim process and everything has not been streamlined or has not been seamless.
Which means it takes forever. That's what you're saying.
Not really, yeah. It doesn't take forever. What we've done, Jeff, part of the transformation coming from the 2013 Act, and what we've done recently is we've been able to clear all the backlog of claims. So, including the death benefits that we are paying. So, as we speak, we are currently paying current payments, current claims that are coming forth.
May I ask, so what is the turnaround time now for someone who comes with a claim? Say today, when will I get my...
Very good question, Vicky. I think, let me give you a bit of background.
Don't give us too much background.
Not too much background.
Just...
What happens is, part of the transformation that we have done in Nssf, you used to find a situation where claims payment turnaround time was about 3 months. We have reduced that turnaround time. As we speak now, it is about 10 days on average.
10 days?
Yes, and we look forward. That's not enough. In the fullness of time, we will be paying benefits. The turnaround time for benefits will be 1 day. For instance, Jeff, for all intents and purposes, this institution is a financial institution. When you save your money in a bank today, and you come back tomorrow, and you ask the bank to give you your money, do they tell you wait? You get your money instantly, or what you would call T+1. So the same should apply to Nssf. Nssf should be able to pay claims as they fall due and within the shortest turnaround time possible. We are automating our processes. We are digitizing to be able to pay benefits within the shortest time possible, and our target is to pay benefits within 1 day.
You're saying even before the body is put into the ground, the family will get the benefits?
Jeff, it's not about death benefits alone. We want to pay you when you are alive. So we are paying retirement benefits. We are not paying debt benefits.
Speaking of which,
when you retire today,
yes,
and you leave your place of employment, you come to Nssf to claim your benefits. You should get them in 1 day. That's what we are saying, that by now, the turnaround time is 10 days.
Right.
But our expectation is that with the automation that is taking place right now within the organization, we believe that you should get your payment within 1 day.
Rose, what if I lose my job and I stop contributing?
If you lose your job and you stop contributing and you are 50 years and above, you have the right to claim your benefits and it will be paid to you. Yeah. As long as you have attained the retirement age as prescribed in the Act.
Which is what, 55 or 50?
It's 50.
50.
Okay.
Early retirement.
So
Early retirement.
retired by now.
And 60.
Yeah.
Another issue.
Early retirement is 50.
Putting your stuff out there, but let me come to you, David, in terms of, so beyond the issue of payouts, you see a lot of Kenyans saying communication oftentimes from the fund in terms of what is my money doing during that period of contribution, right? Can you get regular, and now with this automation, updates on what the money is doing, the progress, if you will?
Okay, thank you, Vicky, for that question. It's again a very good question. I have talked about the transformation that we are implementing in Nssf. What we are doing, of course, we are investing these funds. We are improving on the investment returns to the members. So this money is invested on a continuous basis. We are having member statements issued on a continuous basis, including in the membership portal. So members get their statements. And then what we have done, in addition to these issues of digitization and automation, we are now building up our customer relationship model, where we will be closer to the members. For instance, Jeff, we have, I don't know whether you know this, Nssf has a presence in virtually every county. It has a presence in virtually every Huduma center. And we are taking these services closer to the people through those channels. We are going further to enhance coverage and move to where our contributors are, where our members are. We're going to introduce, through this CRM model, we are going to introduce relationship officers moving around the country, talking to, or rather, engaging with the contributors. And furthermore, down the road, we also intend to introduce some agency modeling, so that that agency will go down to the village to be able to serve our members. So How long can we expect this kind of service to roll out?
How far is that down?
It is something that we are rolling. As we speak now, we are doing a serious automation process. We are digitizing all our records. We have digitized 75 million records, historical records. And we continue that. Once we finish the digitization and automation, everything will be spot on, will be just on real-time basis. So that is where we're going to as Nssf.
Michael Machari.
Just quick to add on to, we're also listening to the customers. The other day we saw on Twitter somebody posting that they went to one of our offices in Kilifi over lunch. And they were very surprised to find the office open. So he was asking the guard, do you guys work over lunch? And the guard said, yeah, we work all the time. So he went in over lunch and he was served, and he posted that on Twitter. So it's something that maybe was not expected of an office such as ours.
Especially in Kilifi.
Why Kilifi, Jeff?
Because, you know, Mombasa,
Yeah, but, you know, we are getting feedback. We on the communication front, we are trying to open up, even on social media. If you open our Twitter page, you'll find something there every day. We have a scheduled AGM to tell the members what is happening to their money, what's the level of investment, what's the size of the fund, and what returns they expect on a yearly basis. Right. So the communication is there, and this is also probably part of it. Invite us here more. and we can talk to people.
David, let me come to you because I'm seeing this as a recurrent question. We also had it as one on social media. Many people are asking, can you shed light on what seems at times to be a double taxation, if you will? So you have the Nssf deductions. This individual is saying there's also the LAC fund deduction. Last year in July, we saw teachers complaining about Nssf now kicking into their pay slips when they have another provident fund of 7.5% coming out of their salaries. So even though this is statutory, the justification, if you will.
Yes, thank you, Vicky, again. I think we are coming from a background where, if you look at, I've just talked about the design of pension schemes, right, or social security as a system. We would have what we call pillar one, or the zero pillar. We start with the zero pillar. Zero pillar is non-contributory, normally state-funded. So that one, you don't make any contribution. And the equivalent of that is like the cash transfers that we do to the elderly in Kenya. That is pillar one, social security. Yeah. The next pillar, Nssf, is, that's zero pillar. Pillar one is Nssf. Mandatory, minimal contributions, and that is why we have the 12% threshold. And then, to add on, we augment these benefits with an occupational scheme, like now the ones you've just mentioned. So if you work in a company, your company would probably be having a retirement benefit scheme. That is pillar two. And remember again, under our Income Tax Act, we are allowed to save into a retirement benefit scheme up to a maximum of 30% of our income, of our salary, or of our salary, or up to a maximum of 20,000 Kenya shillings. So before you hit that ceiling, so whatever we are taking as Nssf today, if you are talking of the new rates, it is 4,300 in total, 4,320. Assuming again, the same person earning 100,000 is doing, say, 20% to his pension scheme, or rather as contributions. So you would get, that is about 20,000 shillings. Remove what has gone to Nssf, which is 4,300. There is still another 15,580, which will go to another, the pillar two scheme, which is the occupational scheme. So really, the question of it's a taxation in their pay is not. It's actually a saving, and there's a lot of headroom. Ideally, we should be building a culture of savings among Kenyans. So
let me ask you this.
Yes.
Let's be very honest here.
Yes.
Nssf has been seen as a cash cow.
Yes.
A lot of people see it as a cash cow.
Yes.
And a cash cow that is prone to corruption.
Yes.
And a lot of people are asking the question, is our money safe?
Yes, Jeff. What I would want to say is, and I assure every Kenyan who makes a contribution to Nssf, that your money is safe. First and foremost, under the Act, the savings going to Nssf are guaranteed by the state. But secondly, to answer your question about corruption, we are coming from a legacy. You remember the 90s, where there were all those things that were happening in the 90s are legacy issues. And I can ask you, Jeff, today, over the last few years, and from where I sit, we don't even have a single case of corruption in Nssf. As we speak today, not a single case is being investigated by EACC. Not a single case is being investigated by any other agency. So we have put in place governance. That's why you see the lady and the gentleman here coming from, it's a tripartite kind of governance arrangement where we have, in the board, we have COTU, or we have the workers' representative, and we have employer representative. We also have independent trustees in the board. So in terms of governance, we have a strong governance framework to safeguard going forward. And this is what has come in. In terms of investment, and actually, Jeff, I will tell you this. There's no money in Nssf as we speak today. All our funds, all the money that we collect are invested by professional investment managers called fund managers. We comply fully with the provisions of the Retirement Benefits Act, which separate roles. So as we speak today, we don't even come in contact with the contributions. They go directly for investment by fund managers whom have been employed by the trustees. So that governance framework separates roles, and you don't get, I would dare say this, anybody thinking that there's money in Social Security House will be in for a root shock.
So, David, as much as you've said there are no cases at EACC right now, we can look at the past, and we've seen several trust managers hauled to court over various cases at Nssf.
Yes.
Some form of retribution would be that money is recovered.
Yes.
Has any of that money been recovered?
Yes. If I may speak to that, I think you remember the story that was happening a while back on discount securities. That money was recovered. So all the whatever issues that were there before, recovery has been done to the letter. So, of course, even when you come to the investments in the real estate, that was the core of what was claimed to be corruption. We've restructured that real estate investment for Nssf. And as we speak today, the real estate component or component of our pension scheme is just about 12%. Structured nicely and working and giving us returns. I don't want to mention, but if you look at what was the hue and cry, Nyayo Embakasi, right. It's perhaps the best managed estate in Nairobi as we speak today. If you talk to people in the Nyayo Embakasi, it's the best investment that Nssf ever did. And for that reason, then we have, as Nssf, put in place structures and mechanisms to ensure that investments are done in accordance with the law.
So before we go to the tweets, really quickly, you mentioned 12% of investments are in real estate now.
Yes.
What are the other portfolio portions looking like?
Actually, the investment that we've done, we have a huge chunk of our investment portfolio in government securities. We hold a portfolio of almost 200 billion shillings in government securities. We have investments in equities. There's an array of asset classes that have been provided under the Retirement Benefits Act. And we have invested as per those guidelines, within those guidelines, and we get the reports. And we report back to our members on those, on those investments.
Rose, these deductions take effect from next month, right?
Yes.
What's to stop an Okiya Mtata type person from running to the courts?
But, Jeff, these are not deductions that we are just creating to be deducted. This is in regards to implementation of the Act. So what we are basically doing is the implementation.
So it's a foregone conclusion, it's done?
Yes, it's done because it's an act. It's not our doing, it's not our formation. It is the act. Our role as trustees and with the managing trustee is to implement this act. And above all, Jeff, as I said earlier on, this is our saving. It is not a tax that we are paying. We are saving for our retirement so that when we leave employment and we are old and we cannot work any longer, we have something back that we can depend on to, you know, feed on.
Right, but it doesn't negate the fact that it's a pinch to the salary.
It's going to be painful.
Whether or not we get it later. But let's quickly go to some tweets,
some reactions,
comments and questions from Kenyans on social media. We have Adan, who's saying, if I'm a Muslim and interest isn't allowed in Islam, where will that money go? How will it be accounted for? David, that goes to you.
Thank you for that question. Again, what we have is, as part of our transformation agenda, we are introducing Sharia compliance savings product for members of the public who profess the Islamic faith, and we will apply it in accordance with the dictates of the Islamic Sharia. So,
Aiden, his name is Aiden.
Aiden should not worry because we are providing, we are taking care of that, what we would call the investment return in accordance with the Islamic Sharia law.
Okay.
Yes.
More tweets, lots of reactions. Let's see some more. Vicky?
All right, it's Kiboy here who kindly asked Mr. Koros why NSSF deductions for UHC staff in Baringo County isn't reflecting on our statements, whereas we've seen working since 2020, I beg your pardon. Who is lying here? Is it Ministry of Health or is it NSSF?
As long as you are registered, because one of the mandates that we have as NSSF is registration of members. As long as we are registered, or you are registered, one is registered in NSSF, you should be able to get your contributions. Jeff, again, we have what we would call unremitted contributions, which is what we are pursuing out there. So I don't know whether in Baringo, the UHC staff that are in Baringo have had their contributions deducted and not remitted, and that is what we are following. But once those contributions hit our accounts, we always update our member record. Again, Jeff, under Section 24 of the Act, we are supposed actually to open a fund account. Each member has a fund account in which those contributions are credited. So, and I believe once we receive those contributions, it is automatically credited. It may happen that in some instances that record keeping encounters challenges. But this is what we are addressing. We have addressed most of them, and we look into it if it is that they are contributing and not getting to us. It's not the only one. We are getting quite a number of employers in these difficult circumstances, not remitting those contributions. So we are going after them to get those contributions and update the record. So they need to hold their patience. Yeah. We'll go there.
Okay. A civil servant here, since retired, says, so in the ministries deduct money from workers, but do not remit to NSSF. For example, they say they were deducted by the ministry they were working for over 6 years, didn't remit a single cent despite this. Can NSSF follow up with these ministries to remit their arrears, and why do they have to follow up themselves, yet these are mandatory statutory deductions that they can't refuse to pay?
If I may answer that again, yes, as I've alluded to, we have employers, not only government, not only ministries or agencies. We have employers who at times fail to remit these contributions. So we have a huge, we have a huge portfolio of unremitted contributions. What we've done, we have a mechanism of enforcement and compliance. I've talked about the CRA model. So we are going after these contributions, and we are updating our records as they fall due. In some instance, we are also talking to those agencies to ensure that they remit those contributions. We have also powers under the law to prosecute whoever fails to contribute to remit whatever he has deducted from the employees.
You can understand the frustrations of Kenyans, right? And there are many out there who are frustrated. Here's one who says, I stopped contributing about 15 years ago when I moved from being employed to self-employed. Now he's asking, can I get my detailed contribution if I want to continue going forward?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the records are there. They're encouraged to visit an office where they are, get a statement, and continue contributing. They should continue contributing if they're working. And just back to Victoria's question, the Act itself does not exempt government. In fact, it expressly states that government is considered as an employee. So if there is some departments that have not been remitting, then the MT can take that up and follow up.
And for the member who stopped contributing 15 years ago, if he or she is still doing some form of business, we have Haba Haba, she or he can continue, contributing. But if he has attained the retirement age, where now he may want to seek reimbursement for the money that he contributed to, then again, he can come to Nssf, and then he can get his benefits if he has attained retirement age.
Yeah. Dr. Boy Wagasha is asking, what percentage of contributions goes to administering the fund compared to global norms? And why do financial scandals continue? Even though you said there's been nothing in the last few years, the scandals still.
Let me start, as I've alluded, I've mentioned, we have not had, in recent times, we've not had financial scandals. So I think it's for him. I don't know. I cannot explain where he thinks there are financial scandals because, you know, sometimes we believe on certain things. But the issue around the administrative cost, as I've talked about, the transformations that we are working on, we are going to get, we are going to automate our processes to an extent that the rate of the cost of administering the fund, once we digitize and automate, will come down to around 1.5% of the fund value. That's the requirement by the Act. We are currently doing around 2.1%, and it is gradually coming down. The standard norm, global practice, is around 1.5%, and we are getting there. We are coming from a high of around 2.5. So we'll get, the trajectory is going down. We'll get to around 1.5% in due course.
Maybe, Jeff, we should tell people to, the issues that you're raising, I refer to them as the Robert Maxwell effect. There's a gentleman known as Robert Maxwell who owned a newspaper in the UK, and he disappeared in the mid-80s. Disappeared with all retirement benefits of his staff, went to the high seas and died there. And of course, there was no money to distribute. It ended up costing the UK government, I think, £1 billion, £1 billion, around about that time. So what we are seeing here, and as a result of what happened in the 90s here in Kenya, you're seeing people very, very skeptical about retirement benefits, and they are worried about the Robert Maxwell effect. Yeah. What we should tell them is that they should stop worrying, because that is what actually led to the creation of the Retirement Benefits Act. So on top of our Nssf Act, we are governed by the Retirement Benefits Act. Being trustees, we are also subject to the rules and laws of trusteeship. We are also governed by the Public Finance Management Act. So we have about 10 or 12 acts that control retirement benefits. So people should stop worrying. And the reason why the employers and employees are represented are exactly the same, to make sure that we mitigate some of these issues that result to the Robert Maxwell effect.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Michael Macharia, Rosa Mamo, David Koros. Great conversation we had there, and thank you so much for clearing the air.
Yep.
Even though it's going to be painful starting
At least
February.
for now, yeah, it doesn't relieve us of that pain starting next month.
But thank you for your contribution and your...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break right here on Sunday Live. We still have more ahead. Sports news is coming up next. Stay with us. Keep tweeting at Krenega Jeff.
At Vicky Rubadir.
At Citizen TVK, the hashtag Sunday Live. Sunday Live takes a break. We'll be back in a moment.